You're listening to a Times Higher Education podcast.
Hello and welcome to Campus Talks, the fortnightly podcast from Times Higher Education that asks academics and university professionals from around the world to share their advice and insight into all aspects of higher education. I'm Eliza Compton, Deputy Editor of Campus. The topic for this episode is the Multilingual University. The benefits of multilingualism, that is, the ability to communicate in multiple languages, are well documented. It prevents cognitive decline, for one, and a US study published in 2018 found that exposure to other languages makes people more open to learning. For universities, the advantages of a multilingual staff and student body extend beyond those individual benefits to a more global mindset, research culture, and a more inclusive education environment. Universities are, by their nature, of course, international institutions. A recent survey by the University of Westminster in London, for example, identified 102 languages among the students polled. So the question is, how can universities build on the strengths that this linguistic diversity brings? To help me understand this and learn strategies for making the most of students' language skills, I reached out to an expert not in the UK but in China. Anwei Feng is a professor of language education whose research and extensive publications focus on bi- and trilingualism, with a particular interest in Chinese minority languages. He's Chair Professor of Multilingual Education in the School of Education and English in the Institution of Asia and Pacific Studies at the University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China. Anwei, who joined UNNC in 2013, teaches professional doctorate and undergraduate students alongside his research work. His well-travelled CV includes universities in China, Qatar, Hong Kong, Singapore and the UK, where he did his PhD. And he is a key founder and vice president of the Chinese Society of Multilingualism and Multilingual Education. China itself is an extremely diverse country when it comes to languages, with hundreds being spoken alongside the national lingua franca of Standard Chinese. And the country welcomed 205,000 international students pursuing higher education degrees in the 2024-2025 academic year, according to the British Council. The University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China, which is located on the East Coast, is an English medium instruction university, but its students come from about 50 different countries. So to start our conversation, I asked Anwei about Ningbo itself. Hi Anwei, and welcome to the Campus Talks podcast.
Oh, hi, Alyssa. Thank you for inviting me.
For people who are not familiar with China and where you are, can you just tell us a little bit about Ningbo itself?
Ningbo is quite a modern city, I would say. It's just 2 hours by high-speed train from Shanghai. Also, in terms of the landscape, the sceneries, Ningbo is really a very beautiful place. And it's, I think, one of the newly Tier 1 cities in China.
It sounds like a fascinating city and very diverse culturally and obviously linguistically as well. We want to talk about the Multilingual University for this episode. So at Nottingham Ningbo, which was the first Sino foreign university to open in China in 2004, all your courses are taught in English, but students come from all over the world, from about 50 different countries, I believe. So what is the linguistic landscape like on campus?
UNNC, that's the abbreviation of University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China, is an EMI university, and students do come from different countries and also different ethnic background. Even in China, we've got minority groups, etc. And English is the main medium of communication, particularly in a classroom situation or in formal domains. However, in informal domains, you hear Chinese and other languages used in canteens and in dormitories, etc. And also, the university is fully aware of this multilingual context. So many people see this as a resource. So some departments try to organize different activities. Departments such as the language center, and they often organize activities to promote awareness of multilingualism and multiculturalism.
So how is the campus different from, say, predominantly Chinese language universities in China?
Yeah, the major difference is certainly the medium of instruction. However, if we think about those mainstream Chinese universities, some of the bilingual education courses and the content language integrated learning courses are also offered. UNC is what we call the Sino-Foreign Cooperative Universities. So we use English as the lingua franca, whereas in mainstream Chinese universities, Mandarin Chinese is the lingua franca. But in general, I have to say, because of the strong promotion of English all over China for the last 2 or 3 decades, the general level of proficiency in students is much higher than that 2 or 3 decades ago.
Oh, that's interesting. You mentioned EMI earlier, which is English medium instruction, and how this is one of the key aspects of Nottingham, Ningbo, China. What are the main advantages then of a linguistically diverse learning environment where, by the nature of the institution, you're going to have people coming together who speak many different languages, either as a first language or indeed as a second or third language?
One obvious advantage of being diverse in terms of language, and I would say the learners tend to be more globally and interculturally open-minded, and they are more tolerant in most cases. So I think on a transnational or international campus like UNC, the students are pretty flexible in terms of lifestyles, in terms of language used in any domains. So I think, a transnational or international university like UNC could actually help cultivate some talents who can actually bring this global, national, and local into meaningful relationship.
In your own teaching, how do you find that different levels of language proficiency, whether that is primarily English, I imagine is what we're talking about, how do you find that different levels of proficiency affect classroom dynamics?
Yeah, one obvious feature of such a classroom is that in most cases, I would say, those learners with a higher proficiency in English are a bit more, well, sometimes much more active, particularly in classroom activities such as group discussions and pair work. It's not always the case, though, because research also show that some other factors play a role, including learners' personality and their self-efficacy and motivation. All these kind of things play a role, but English proficiency is certainly a very important factor that has influence on the classroom dynamics. And in my own classrooms, I mainly teach what we call the Professional Doctorate in Education program, the EDD program. And so sometimes we have native speakers of English. And in those cases, it is usually the case that native speakers of English, they look more confident when it comes to expressing their views and in group work. So it's really crucial to organize activities, to organize assignments in an appropriate manner.
Do you have any particular techniques that you find are successful in bringing, say, if students are more reticent to find their voice in class?
In the classroom, that's very often the situation, particularly in lectures. More proficient students would be more willing to express themselves. I think it can be very effective when you organize some of the activities, asking the students to use task-based approach or some group projects, and some of the less articulate students would be able to participate, and particularly if the activity is organized in a very systematic manner with a very clear assessment criteria, making sure that all the students participate in the activity. So some of the quieter students would contribute to the writing part, for instance, and they could probably take more notes and conducting more online search in order to contribute their ideas to the group work.
Yeah, so you'd lean into different students' strengths in, say, some students might be more confident with their writing than they are perhaps with their speaking ability, and you can help them to build on their strengths.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But in these years, as I said before, I'm teaching this EDD program, and very often our students are very proficient. So yeah, but this kind of things are particularly because I also teach some of the undergraduate courses sometimes, and I just found this different approaches, task-based approach and group activities very effective.
Yeah, group tasks can be a really good way of just getting students to participate in a way that feels less public than perhaps speaking to an entire tutorial group or lecture hall. I want to talk a little bit about the context. So can you speak a little bit about being in an English language teaching environment within a Chinese context?
Right. One phenomenon that has been under debate for decades is the claim that the Chinese students are usually rather quiet and pretty passive learners in the classroom. This is often said to be entrenched in a culture that respects and obeys authorities, and the culture of faith. If you know the meaning of faith in China, and so very often students feel quite hesitant to speak up in a classroom situation. Yeah, when we talk about teaching and learning in the classroom again, and coupled with the fact that for years, teaching and learning in China had been rather exam-oriented, because in China, if you think about secondary school education in particular, also in higher education, very exam-oriented. So students and their parents care less about other things than the higher grades, higher marks they get. You may probably heard about Gaokao. That's extremely important examination, high-stake examination that determines one's life opportunities, really.
So just to be clear, that's the exam that students do after secondary school?
Yeah, they have to take it as the entrance exam to higher education. So it's very exam-oriented, and very often, particularly in terms of English education, a lot of Chinese students are found to be pretty good at receptive skills, particularly reading and listening, because these two skills are extremely important as far as grades, marks are concerned, grammar, vocabulary, and listening comprehension. So these are the things they can often train themselves very hard, whereas they are not very good at productive skills. So when it comes to writing and speaking, many Chinese students are found not, very weak really, not to be very good. So I think that has some, that's very much related to, when people study this phenomenon, they often link this with what we often call Chinese heritage culture. And actually, not only in China, but also in Japan and South Korea, for instance. And these are all countries called Confucian heritage culture countries. So students share a lot in common in that way. So I think, this is probably the phenomenon that is discussed very much in relation to Confucianism, respecting authorities, obey authorities, and the culture of faith. And in the classroom, never interrupt the teacher and try to listen. Also, when you ask questions, make sure that you get well prepared. Not many are, first of all, not many opportunities to ask questions in the classroom. But once there are opportunities, you are expected to get well prepared and ask intelligent questions. So a lot of learners quite cautious. They feel very hesitant to be active in the classroom.
That's so interesting, and I think offers a little bit of a contrast to the Western context, which is much more about exchange and two-way conversation. But I can see as a former teacher that there's huge advantages in having attentive students who listen and ask thoughtful questions. So I suspect there's things to recommend both sides. So, Anwei, what then is your advice for capitalising on multilingualism within a monolinguistic environment?
Yeah, this is really a question I'm fascinated about. So first of all, 3 years of research and review of the literature. Strictly speaking, I think there is hardly any environment that is purely monolingual. And if we think about the UK as an example, or big cities, for instance, London, Birmingham, all these places have become more and more multilingual and multicultural, and English plus those languages used by immigrants. And also in the UK itself, we've got Welsh and the Gaelic, and these languages plus a lot of English accents, or we can call it varieties of English. So in terms of capitalizing on multilingualism, much research have shown that multilinguals enjoy many advantages in terms of cognition, in terms of affects, and also in terms of economic gains. And actually, we've seen a lot of research there, a lot of, I also gave a lot of talks on the benefits of being multilingual and bilingual. And I think it is really important for universities and for the whole society to be aware that multilingualism is the way to go.
So universities should just be embracing it and working out how they can make the most of it.
Exactly.
We've been doing a bit of work on multilingualism and things like translanguaging and things on campus. But often these conversations frame multilingualism as something to be treated as a challenge. So I wanted to know how you see universities being able to build on multilingualism as a strength rather than an aspect to be navigated perhaps in teaching or other university activities?
This is really a good question. And first of all, I think in China, and I suppose in universities all over the world, and universities are often seen as institutions which the society look up to. And in China, for instance, while schools, primary schools and secondary schools have to put everything national absolutely at the center, above everything, anything else. And so they have to follow the national curriculum and promote national languages and cultures, etc. And universities should be the place where, as I said earlier, where the global, national, and local could be brought into meaningful relationship. Recently, I edited a book together with a few colleagues, and its title has these two key concepts. One is what we call the global talents, and the other is globalized higher education. And this book will be published very soon by Routledge. So we have been discussing this concept for 6 or 7 years. So the book is actually the product of 6 or 7 years of symposia and active discussions and research. So in order to achieve this globalized higher education, I think multilingualism and interculturalism are the key constructs for both research and practice in universities. Really, indeed, in universities, languages, multilingualism should be seen as resource, as right, rather than an issue. You know, some universities find it difficult to, find it challenging, if we use the word challenging, to actually take all languages their learners or their students speak into account. But philosophically and ideologically, as many scholars now argue, that they should be seen as resources, as rights, not problems. So, if the universities don't see multilingualism that way, and it's very difficult for the society to actually value diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. So I think, we need to conceptualize universities this way.
Certainly language is key to equity. And as you say, bringing cultures together as well, it's central. And your research is very focused on multilingualism, I think, bilingualism and trilingualism, particularly with an interest in minority languages across China. I believe that you're part of an ongoing research project in a large research team looking at trilingualism across China. Can you just tell us a little bit about that work?
Yeah, we founded a national network 17 years ago exactly. But of course, we started researching and publishing in the area a bit earlier. So we founded this national work, mainly to research into trilingual education and trilingualism. Yeah, this is what we did in China by trilingualism. We refer to L1, particularly minority regions, the learners' mother tongue. L2, the national lingua franca, Putonghua, and L3, English. So we very much focus on education, language education in minority regions. So that's the national network we started with 17 years ago. Our network has expanded, of course, to include dozens of researchers in many minority regions, plus 200 or 300 enthusiastic scholars, joining our annual symposium. So we've got quite a huge national network. We've been working on the topic for many years. even now, I myself has been leading a project on what we term local studies for education, and we very much research into the topolects and dialects, the local varieties of Chinese, and those intangible cultural heritages. And again, this has a lot to do with multilingualism and multiculturalism. And actually, I will travel to a minority region in the north part of China, attending our annual symposium on multilingualism and multilingualisation. We always very much value this annual symposium where we come together as a family. And we are very close and talking about all issues, policies, practice, models, and all sorts of things. And now this year, of course, AI empowerment, particularly in relation to preservation and the maintenance of minority languages and the local dialects. So that's what we've been doing this year. Very exciting and very interesting indeed.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. This has been your interest in research for a long time, and you've taught all over the world. Just as a final question, and this might have been maybe a question to begin with, but we'll use it to end with, which is, where does your own interest in language come from?
Oh, right. Okay. That's a very interesting question, really, to end. I developed this interest more than 2 decades ago, when I was in the UK, actually. And I was asked to teach a module called Bilingualism and Bilingual Education, started from University of Durham. And I actually obtained my PhD from that university. And a leading intercultural communication scholar, you may probably know his name, Mike Byron. He was my PhD supervisor, and he asked me to teach this module. And that really fascinated me. And because of the teaching of this module, I moved, that's part of the reason anyway. I moved from Durham University to Bangor University in Wales, where I also met Colin Baker. He is the key person. You surely heard his name, and he's certainly the key person in this area, and he wrote this Bible in bilingualism and bilingual education book. So I followed his book, I followed his research, etc. So I moved to Bangor University, and I very quickly realized that research and practice in this area in China are rather scanty, very isolated, and not very strong. So I contacted many leading scholars, leading researchers in different regions in China. I speak Chinese. Chinese is my native language, and a couple of local dialects. So I got to know these people and founded this national network, as I mentioned earlier, to study and promote multilingualism and multilingual education. We have been very enthusiastically working on this research area ever since. So that was actually the start. I started my interest in the UK, ironically.
Well, ironically, the beginning of the story has given us a neat ending to the story. Thank you for your time today, Anwei. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm very enthusiastic to talk about multilingualism and multilingual education in China.
One of the things I enjoyed most about teaching English as a second language in France was learning about my students' own language skills, which usually far exceeded my own, and discovering how intertwined language is with culture. I found Anwei's description of how Chinese heritage or Confucian culture shapes the learning environment fascinating. His use of group tasks to give students an opportunity to use their strengths, say reading or research, as they develop the productive skills of writing and speaking mirrored my own experience. It's a great way to coax more reticent students into participation. As Anwei says, multilingualism is an asset for higher education institutions, one that can support globalisation, bringing the local, national and international into conversation with each other, and foster the open mindset that a global world demands. So that's it for this episode of Campus Talks. I'd like to thank Anwei Feng of the University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China for sharing his insights with us. If you would like to read more advice into supporting student success in the multilingual university, you'll find it in our latest Campus Spotlight Guide. Just go to timeshighereducation.com/campus. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or colleague, like and subscribe, and we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to a Times Higher Education podcast.